Good morning and happy New Year's Eve 2017. I hope you had an amazing holiday and a Merry Christmas. Last week we were skiing up in Canada, so I wasn't able to record a video that day. Um, but my name is Dr. Denise Shranowski, and this is this week's A Dose from Dr. Denise. I post these each Sunday. My hope is to inspire, teach, and show you how to release your God-given health and life potential. And there is a reason that I am recording this in my pajamas, even though you can't really tell it's my pajamas. I guess by my pants you can. It's early in the morning when I naturally wake up, so I'm looking at the clock and it is 4:50, early Sunday morning. I wake up every Sunday, or every day actually, between 4:45 and 5 a.m. And so that's related to the message that I want to share with you. So if you've been following my posts over the last few weeks and months, no doubt you'll think that the most important decision that I made in 2017 was to stop drinking alcohol. And that really was a very important one. But there was another decision that led to that decision, and that's what I want to discuss today. That decision was to absolutely begin seriously listening to my inner voice, or what we call our soul. And that's when I feel God speaks to me through my soul, and I hear it more clearly first thing in the morning. So my early morning time is precious to me, and that's why I wanted to wake up really early today and get this recorded, or my natural time, frankly. Uh, Before I get into this most important decision for 2017, I do want to kind of sidestep and say something. Um, you know, when I mention the word soul or God, my messages are definitely religious. And I just want to hope that I'm appealing to a wider audience. That the problem with being too religious is that people will turn you off right away. And so if you're in that category, I just play this message out today, because I really, really try not to thump my Bible over your head too strongly. I am a Christian and I do speak what I call Christianese. But my hope with these messages is that they appeal to all faiths. There is only one God, and one day we will all discover the absolute truth. But right now, I'm working off of what I think is the truth. And because my language is Christianese and my life instruction manual is the Bible, that's the filter with which I see the world. But so anyhow, let me get back on track. But like I said, I do hope that these messages appeal and cross all faith boundaries. So the most important decision that you can make in 2018 is to listen to your inner voice. That inner voice speaks to you 24/7. And I think of it as a radio line or radio station where we tune in to GOD 101.1. So God is always on that station. The question is, can we hear him, and have we turned down the static of the other stations? The world presents a lot of static. And so there's some people that go through their entire life and don't turn into the station of God because the outside static or outside world is incredibly loud. And so there's things that we need to learn to turn down. So that's the first thing. And that might be news, excessive watching of television or Netflix, spending way too much time on social media, which I am at fault for doing, and definitely something that I'm cutting back on. Listening to toxic people. It might be friends, it might be a close family member that causes your line to be incredibly staticky to God. It might be hardship, it might be a lack of abundance, it might be poor health, it might be lack of sleep, it might be hating your job. So there's lots of things that make that line staticky, and that's the first thing you have to learn, to turn that down. The beauty is that first thing in the morning, a lot of those things are not happening. The world is not awake yet. You certainly do not have to have social media on. You do not need to be watching the television or the news, and the rest of the world is sleeping, so you don't need to deal with them or work, and you're awake, so hopefully you're not tired. So first thing in the morning is a wonderful time to hear from God. Not that God doesn't speak to you 24/7, but it's when we really can tune in best. And so I call that my soul, or my inner voice that speaks to me. And I've been doing something for about 10 years now that I want to share with you. So I have these hardback journals. This particular one was a gift. And I've been keeping a hardback journal, a spiral bound journal, since 2006. And invariably, about once a month, once every 6 weeks, I write a love letter. And that love letter begins one of two ways. It's usually, Dear Denise, when I feel very strongly that God is speaking through me and I should write down what I'm hearing. Um, or that letter is, Dear God, when there are things in my life that I want to express to God, gratitude, or visions for the future, or things that I'm just hoping for or wanting to happen in my life. And the beauty of writing those things down is that over the last few years and months, I reread my journals, and invariably a very clear pattern emerges of what it is that I want, what I'm grateful for in my life. Well, one very clear pattern for me since 2006 was to cut back on drinking. In fact, it was on around page 5 of my very first journal that I started using in 2006, which just said, I think it said specifically, drink less, drink one time a week. Well, sometimes that would happen, sometimes that wouldn't, but invariably it wouldn't. And so one day this summer, I woke up having reread my journals and given it much thought over the summer, and I knew it was coming, that there was going to be a point where I just stopped spontaneously. And that day happened for me this past August. So why did I do it? Did I have a problem? I guess it depends on how you define a problem. My drinking alcohol was not interfering with my life per se. You wouldn't think it at all. But what it was absolutely doing was interfering with the development of me. In order for me to become God's best version of me, I mean, ultimately, that's what I'm after, in my very short life. We all have a very short life, especially when you compare it to, the millions of years that Earth has existed. Our life is just a blip, or a wisp of air, as the Bible would call it. And I want to become the very, very best version of me. And there was nothing about drinking alcohol that was making me the best version of me. Nothing. And so, I don't want to get too far off on that tangent, but I think that you know what I'm talking about there. So I decided to just stop spontaneously. And one of the reasons is because I was reading my journals and seeing a repeated theme, which was asking myself to cut back on drinking or take a break from it. And I thought, why waste the ink anymore? Why don't I just stop and record something else? So that's my plea to you on this New Year's Eve, on this beautiful day, very, very chilly day up here in the Northeast, is to um, start recording your conversations with God. Start writing down that inner wisdom, and that might be really hard for you because you don't even think you hear from God, but you do. You just have to tune into that radio station. One of the two best things that I can offer you is, first thing in the morning is ideal. It's when the world's asleep and it's quiet in your home, and you can really, really hear that inner voice. And number two is that doing this after meditation is really helpful. And meditation shouldn't be scary to you. It's just when you sit quietly with your thoughts. Sometimes no thoughts will come, but that's rare. Usually the thoughts are going to come. But if you sit quietly and you practice counting your breaths, focusing on your breaths, focusing on your chest rising up and down, listening to some meditation music, whether it's through Pandora or a wonderful meditation app, or saying a mantra for 10 minutes. Once that happens and you kind of zen out and you're just sitting quietly, for me it's real easy because I have my fireplace that I turn, hopefully that showed up, that I turn on and off because it's just a flick of a button, and that can really cause me to be very, very peaceful. So write yourself those letters. It doesn't have to be in a fancy journal. It can be in a yellow legal pad. It can be in a composition notebook. But the beauty of doing it over a long period of time is you'll see a recurring theme. And that recurring theme is going to ask you to do things. Your inner voice is going to ask you to do some things in your life. It might be to start a new career. It might be to quit a job. It might be to say no to a family member I remember having, a lot of difficulties with my mother-in-law while she was still alive, and may she rest in peace. But that created some angst for me of whether I was doing the right thing or not with her. And, writing down in my journals really helped me with that situation. It might be inner wisdom about how to deal with a difficult child, or where you should live, or whether you should buy that thing or that car, or whether you should sell that thing. So you'd be shocked at what your thoughts will tell you and how God will speak through you. So I wanted to close out this week's A Dose from Dr. Denise with a poem that I wrote. And I wrote that this summer. Each summer, my pastor usually lets me preach in my church when he is going on vacation. And this summer, I spoke on how to be happy. But I wrote a poem and I called it Ode to Hunter. Hunter is my 19-year-old son. And when you ask Hunter what he wants to be when he grows up, his answer is that he wants to be happy. So here's my poem that I wrote. I have most of it memorized, but I might need to refer to my notes. So God bless. I hope you have an amazing and safe New Year's Eve. And I'll finish it out with this. Ode to Hunter. When I grow up, I want to be happy. It's what I really want to be. So do listen to my poem and see if you agree. You see, the world's definition of happiness is not what I'm really after. So let's see if we can get this right, because the days keep going by faster, faster, and faster. More, more, the world claims. That's where happiness is found. And yet that whisper tells you different. You know, the whisper that speaks to you when your knees are on the ground. So what do? Do we give up the money, the trips, the house, the fame? They can all be so distracting. No, God gives you those things to enjoy, all the while they are lasting. But that's not the happiness that I seek. I want the eternal kind, the one that's in the book. So what exactly does the Bible say? Let's take another look. It tells us to be happy. We must be here and now, in the present. No more fear, no more worry, no more guilt. After all, that's not why he was sent. Of course, there will be hard times, trials and tribulations, as Paul calls them. But today is the day the Lord has made, a fresh start, a do-over, so we thank him. So we learn, as our days march by, that true happiness is never fleeting. It's a joy that fills your heart until that anticipated meeting. You know, the one where you'll meet your Maker, and I'll ask you some very basic questions. Oh, how we wish we had a list in advance, so we didn't have to learn all these hard lessons. He'll say, did you love yourself? Did you love your neighbor? Did you take care of your human frame? Black, white, left, right, sister, brother. Did you love them all the same? Did you pause at his beautiful sunset? Give glory to Hosanna in the highest up above? Did you spend daily time in his word? Did you show and tell about his love? Well, if you did all these things, my friends, I can promise you this much. You'll be happy. You'll be really, really happy, because you'll feel in peace. You'll feel his touch and his everlasting love. Peace out. Be safe tonight, and I'll see you next Sunday. Do share these messages, tag someone, and like A Dose from Dr. Denise.